Hi everyone, welcome to week 2 of classes. Hopefully you've gotten settled in to your dorm or wherever you're living and you had a good first week of class. I'll keep this video short, so please watch it. I'll try to make it interesting and short, so not a big task. So my research is generally focused on phytoremediation and bioremediation, which is where we use plants and microbes to clean up hazardous, toxic chemicals in the environment. So, for instance, dry cleaners in the past have used tetrachloroethylene, which we call PCE, which degrades into other chlorinated chemicals as well. But these chemicals cause cancer and they're known to be very toxic to humans. But we didn't know this for a while. So dry cleaners use these chemicals for a long time before we figured out these chemicals were bad. And we've had to go back as environmental engineers and clean up these former dry cleaning sites. And we found that one way to do this is by using trees. So on Canvas this week, I have uploaded, let's see if I can share my screen. I have uploaded this video along with this photo here and then this table, your weekly reading, and then once again, please review your essay requirements and your service learning. But we can see when we have a tree that's interacting with the chemical, it can interact with the chemical in a variety of ways. So it can use its roots or it can use the tree trunk and the leaves. And it can either degrade the chemical, break it down into smaller chemicals. It can volatilize the chemical and put it in the air. It can store the chemical in its leaves or down in its roots. So phytoextraction in the leaves or in the roots would be just storing it. Stabilization would be to change its compound and make it less reactive, done by the roots. And then degradation, as I mentioned, in the leaves or in the roots where it's breaking it down into smaller chemicals. And phytostimulation is where you're stimulating, maybe providing some extra nutrients for the microbes to interact with the roots and the chemicals. So essentially, if you have a site that used to be a dry cleaner or used to be a gas station or used to be an area where there's a lot of chemicals that are there, maybe some of you have seen Aaron Brockovich or know about other, heavy contaminated sites, we can go in and put in trees and they can interact with the chemical and help remediate the site, make it clean and available for use again. One interesting fact is that Chernobyl, where there was a huge nuclear meltdown, there's a lot of uranium in the ground, and there are plants who can survive and seem to be kind of remediating slowly the uranium that's there. Sunflowers are a classic example of what can be used for remediating radioactive waste like uranium. So I've also linked this case study example here, which talks about how if you have a site that you found is contaminated, this site was contaminated with pesticide. You can see that there's these barrels, old rusty barrels that were filled with pesticide. And this pesticide we found has been, we found it can cause cancer and it can also be harmful in a variety of ways to humans. So they found all these pesticides at the site, they're all on the ground, they're everywhere, and they decided to plant poplar trees at the site to try to remediate the pesticides. So they started with these little cuttings as shown in the photo here, they cut off a piece of an active poplar and they put it in the ground where the pesticides were known to be. So 2 weeks later, it starts to develop leaves. They give it irrigation, maybe some nutrients, make sure the soil is correct for the tree. And after 4 weeks, a month, we have full, longer growth from the cutting. And then we start to see after a year what looks more like an actual tree. So the poplar cutting, just this little tree branch, has grown into a tree and its roots are growing down into the ground. And as I mentioned through this photo, we can have interaction with the chemical from the roots and the leaves and all over the tree. But once the tree has started to interact with the chemical, that's where we start to see remediation taking place. Sorry, I don't want security. So this site has been going on for several years. The trees have been growing. Some have been doing well, others haven't. We have to make sure the trees stay healthy. But 7 years later, there's this big, beautiful forest at this old contaminated site. The pesticide levels are minimum. The trees have been able to uptake and remediate these pesticides. And now we have a site that used to look like a dumping ground for these chemicals, you know, and nobody would want to live here, go here, anything. And now we have a beautiful site that not only has trees for an aesthetic purpose, but they've been able to remediate the chemicals that are there. And you can see it just looks like this nice, you know, grove of trees instead of a pesticide farm kind of. So along with trees, we can also do some floating phytoremediation. This is a research project that I'm currently working on. This isn't a photo of my project, but it's a similar project where we have these trees that we plant on these floating platforms, and the trees uptake a lot of the nutrients, because in Florida, one of our heavy chemicals of concern is nitrogen and phosphorus. That's what's causing the algal blooms and the red tide. That's what causes a lot of the eutrophication of lakes. So if we can have an abundance of plants that are taking up that nitrogen and taking up that phosphorus, instead of letting the algae grow or some other animals, unwanted microbes or plants, we can help keep the water clean. In addition, a lot of plants are known to interact with hazardous chemicals, as I talked about in the last example, and heavy metals. So along with removing nitrogen and phosphorus, they can interact with toxic chemicals and heavy metals. So these plants are kind of floating on the water. You can see in this photo that their roots are interacting with the water, taking up the nutrients, taking up the chemicals, and removing them from that water, putting them into the plant. We use a variety of plants, and we use plants to treat a range of chemicals. So this site is for the 5 most commonly used plants, one of them being Indian mustard, which you've probably seen on the side of the road. It grows really quickly. It's this bright yellow. And because it grows quickly and it's known to take up heavy metals, we use it quite a lot. The second is a willow tree. These beautiful big willow trees are known to be very, very effective at taking up dangerous heavy metals such as cadmium, nickel, and lead. And they grow quickly and they're very hardy. And they look nice. In addition, we have poplar, which I talked about in the first example. They grow quickly. They give us wood, which we can use for other applications, such as wood floor or mulch. And they're known to work really well with chlorinated solvents, such as the dry cleaning chemicals or some other carcinogenic compounds that are known to be in the environment right now. Fourth is Indian grass. This is also really common, grows very quickly. I'm sure you've seen it around and maybe not even acknowledged it, but it's been known to work well with agricultural chemicals that we found in hindsight cause a lot of damage to ecosystems and even people, such as atrazine and metallochlor. And then fifth, sunflowers. So they're beautiful plants. They grow really quickly. And as I mentioned at the beginning, we've found that they can interact with uranium as well as heavy metals, lead, zinc, a lot of other compounds that we would like to remove from the environment, copper, nitrogen, phosphorus. And there's still a little bit of research about the safety, but sunflower, we can reuse the seeds for food, or more importantly, right now, for oil. So we commonly use sunflowers, willow and poplar trees, grasses such as Indian grass, and then the mustard seed. I really like this table on Canvas as well. It goes through some of the major contaminants that we use phytoremediation with. So we have arsenic, chromium, lead, and mercury, which are metals, and then polychlorinated biphenyls, which are in computer parts, TCE, which is one of the ones from the dry cleaner, MTBE, which was added to gasoline, DDT, which was a pesticide that Rachel Carson wrote about in Silent Spring. It's known to weaken the shell of bird eggs and cause a wide range of harmful side effects. And then PCP, which we use in treating wood, and it's also found a lot with gases and creosotes. So we have federally regulated levels of exposure. If a site has more arsenic than this or more DDT than this, you have to clean it up. So this is kind of trying to keep everybody safe and away from these chemicals that can cause birth defects or cancer or death. And then over the years of research, we have been looking at what sort of plants can effectively remove these contaminants from the environment. And I like this table because it kind of shows, if you had a site with arsenic, you could use a sunflower or a Chinese fern. If you had TCE, you could use a pine tree or a willow tree or a poplar. If you had PCP, mushrooms work well, wheatgrass. So I just thought this table was really nice, and I hope you enjoy looking at it as well. Obviously, I really like phytoremediation. I think it's fascinating. I do a lot of research in this right now, and if you can add some additional bacteria into the plant with some nutrients and other things, if that makes them work better, that's a big research area of mine. So I hope you all have a great second week. Please complete the reading response for this week due by August 30th. And what is sustainability? There's more information if you click on this link here on Canvas. And I hope you have a great week. Email me with any questions, and yeah, enjoy. Bye.